Well, it's a quite long story. Um, let's put it that way. You see, I work very close with Ingo Powitzer, who is the guitar tech of Matthias. And before he met the Scorpions, he was working for the Kelly family. So we were working together all the time. So I was working for the Kelly family, done all the repairs and all that. And then he moved over to the Scorpions, and basically I moved with him. You know, we're we're like a couple. So we moved to the Scorpions, and so I got first repairs, and all of a sudden Rudolf Schenker was in my old workshop in Hamburg. Knocked at the door, and asked me, I heard you make guitars, and I need an acoustic flying V, and I need it in 3 weeks' time. Can you do it? And well, tough question. Of course, I said yes, I can, even if I didn't have a clue how I'm going to manage. But yeah, that was the first one. So I was working day and night, 3 weeks, making that acoustic flying V. Because,
what year was that,
huh?
Boris? What year was that?
Oh God, when was it? Was it 2000 or 2001? It was for the album Acoustica. That's that DVD that they recorded in Lisbon, in Lisboa, in Portugal. And that's why it had to be finished in 3 weeks, because that's when they had the gig, right? And I think it was 2001 or 2000. Can't really remember. Yeah, that was the first one. Turned out good. Rudolf very happy, and then they started ordering more and more and more. Yeah. Yeah, we're a good team, you know. I mean, he's the one on stage, and I'm the one behind. Yeah, so I do all the stuff he can't do on stage. He gives to me, and I fix it. And also he helped me a lot with his experience to develop the guitars further, you know. Because when you play the big stages, you know, there are problems you usually don't have in small clubs and all that, you know. And the guitars have to be super duper solid, and also all the climate changes they go through, you know. One day they play bloody Alaska, the next day they play the Amazonas rainforest, right? So it's a very the climate changes are very drastic, and the guitars all have to manage it without getting out of tune and neck warping and all that, you know. And I learned a lot through that as well, you know, through that experience. Yes. Uli, of course, I met him through the Scorpions as well. He played a few gigs with the Scorps, you know, like a couple of years ago, that Wacken Festival, and where they had a big show with all the ex-members, you know, the old drummer was there, and
Yes.
and it was great. Michael Schenker as well, you know, and and Uli, he plays that famous Sky guitar. I'm sure you saw that on the webpage. It's got that teardrop design, and it's a famous guitar.
Yes.
It's also a very frightening guitar, yeah, because all the guitar technicians they run away when they saw that guitar, you know, because this original one he played for more than 20 years. Once the one guitar, and when you have a look inside, it's a miracle that it worked, yeah, because the electronic components all over the place, free wires flying across, and And I know the roadies always had problems to fix it. Yeah, and now Uli got a deal with Dean Guitars.
That's what I was going to ask you next, is about the Dean guitar.
In Tampa, Florida. He's a good friend of Elliot Rubinson, the owner. And they decided to run a small series of those Sky guitars. And first they tried it with CNC machines, in their factory, but didn't really work out. Yeah. So I got the job to do the small series. And so I make 50 of those Sky guitars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they're really, I mean, those guitars, it's the top of today's guitar technology. Yeah, those guitars, it's just amazing. There are actually 4 companies involved in those guitars. The preamp is made by John Oram from England, and John is he used to make Trident mixing desks. Yeah, he developed them, and in the 60s he used to be the developing manager, director of Vox in England. You know, the Vox guitar amps, and he's known as the godfather of the British EQ. And that guy is making the preamp, right? Which is basically a sort of slimmed down version of the input of one of those Trident desks. Yeah, and those Trident desks were the absolute Rolls Royce. John told me, yeah, he sold 160 of those desks just to Nashville, right? All the Nashville studios, they all have that desk. Anyway, so the guitar gets driven by an 18 volts power supply, yeah, just like a proper mixing desk. And it's got a gain control like a mixing desk, like you have the microphone input and you have gain, then you have a middle, treble, bass control, which are excellent, yeah, real British EQs, and then you have master volume, then you have the pickups, which I make, very special pickups, low impedance pickups. Yeah, they won't work in a normal guitar. They need the preamp. Yeah, those pickups are suited exactly for those preamps. And also my patent is included. I've got a patent on a pickup. Let me quickly explain. I have those pickups, those sort of pickups also in Matthias guitars in the Mastercaster. And it's basically what it is. It's one pickup with 2 sounds, Fender and Gibson in one. Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that, but you got the full PAF type humbucking, and you get the real, authentic single coil. Yeah, so for your guitarists out there, it's not a splitted humbucker like they all do. They split one coil off and they say then it's single coil. Well, it's a single coil, but it doesn't sound like a real Fender single coil, right? So my patent, basically allows for having a pure single coil sound and a pure humbucker sound in one pickup. So those pickups, I made a low impedance version for Uli, for those preamps. By the way, the whole system is also on sale as a replacement set called Mega Wing.
Mega what?
Mega Wing, like wings, like the plane.
Okay.
Like birds flying. Mega Wing. Yeah, that's Uli always gives names. Oh, by the way, every Sky guitar is getting blessed by Uli personally, right? So he takes every before I'm allowed to ship it to the States, Uli has to test it, right? He plays it properly through the big amp. If everything works, and then he actually is doing a blessing procedure, which nobody is allowed to watch, right? It's a very special treatment to the guitar. Basically, he puts his soul into the guitars, right? And he gives them names. So every guitar has a name. You know, his old guitar was called Mighty Wing, and then he has a few new ones. One's called Lionheart or something, and so on and so on. Every guitar has its own name. One's called Bianca because it's white.
Oh, that is fantastic.
And every guitar comes with a certificate with everything on it, you know, the name and serial number, and everybody signs. So I sign, Uli signs, John Oram signs, and Elliot Rubinson signs as well. Yeah, and that's the story with Uli's guitar, right? And what makes them so special, apart from all the pickups and the electronics, you see, Uli plays usually old Marshalls, you know, Marshall amps, right? The old ones, the big stacks, 100 watts, and the old ones didn't have any master volume. Yeah, so if you want to get a good sound, they were really loud. And Uli plays very loud. But he has the amp setting to about 3, which means it's very loud, but it's very clean. Yeah. And all the sound, all the distortion and all that, and all the Fender and Gibson sounds and everything he makes with the guitar, you can watch it all on YouTube. All those sounds, he's not using pedals. I mean, he's got a little delay and all that. But he doesn't change the sounds with the pedals. He changes it all with the guitar. Yeah. You see him always turning the buttons and flicking the switches, and all the sounds come out of the guitar into a clean amp. So he drives, when everything is turned up, all the controls of the Sky guitar, the guitar produces an output of 30 volts. Yeah. And just imagine 30 volts going into a tube amp. The tube's gonna go crazy. Yeah, they're gonna gleam like mad. And funny enough, yeah, Uli blew he holds the world record for blowing guitar amps.
He does.
Because every third amp he plays, and he plays loads of amps because all the time he's on tour, usually it's hired equipment. He blows the amp because the amp can't handle the power of the guitar. They just blow up. I saw it myself. We were at the party, yeah, and there was a stage and jam session, and actually I played with him a few numbers. It was very fun, and all of a sudden we're gone. It just the amp. First of all, it sounded very strange for a few seconds, and then it was just boom, gone. Right? Expensive job, you know, all the time getting new amps, and he's famous for that, you know. He's famous for that. He found a company now that I think he's playing what are they called? Black Star or Blackfield? No, Black Star amps from England. Very good, very good. They're all ex-members from Marshall. Ex-employees of Marshall. They formed their own company, and very good amps. They don't blow up. Yeah, and the Sky guitar, basically, apart from all the electronics, it has many, many frets. Yeah, when you look at it, it's got, I think, 36 frets. So it's got a much wider tonal range than a normal guitar. And the reason is because Uli was the first guitarist playing Paganini on the electric guitar. You know Paganini, the violin player? Very famous.
Uli was?
You know, there was a violin player called Paganini.
Okay.
Very famous player, I think 1920 around, very famous player. And that guy he was called the devil's player because he was the fastest guy ever. And Uli was the first guy who played that classical stuff, Paganini stuff, on the guitar. And to be able to play that, he needed more frets because the violin has extra octaves that the normal guitar doesn't have. That's why he has the very long neck with the 36 frets, so he can play Paganini 1-to-1, right? Like on the violin. And that's why all the guitarists love Uli, because he was the first guy doing all that, doing the really speedy classical type. Yngwie Malmsteen and all them. They actually got all the tricks of Uli. Uli was the first guy doing it. Yeah. Also Metallica and all those boys. Yeah, Uli was a big influence to them.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because
normal people don't know that, but the guitarists, they all know him,
They really don't. There are a lot of guitar players that are familiar with Uli and the influence that he has on guitar players, but I wonder how many really know about that, about the violin and the classical music and why Uli has that many frets. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, so he can do all the violin stuff, Violin is an octave higher than the guitar, or even two. Yeah, and with that guitar, he can do it.
That's great.
The Masterclass was a real challenge. Actually, it's the reason I got that patent. Let me tell you how it all started. Matthias used to have a deal with Fender guitars. Fender was doing a run of so-called Jabocasters. I don't know if you heard of them. The Jabocaster. Basically, it was a Strat with a humbucker at the bridge position, candy apple red, and a bit tricky wiring. Yeah, with the pots, it was a bit unusual. Anyway, so Fender wanted to do a new run, and with my pickups. I mean, that was the whole deal, because there's pickups that can do it both, right? The Fender and the Gibson sound. And so I got that patent just to have it covered in case anything big happens, because if any deal happens with a big company like Fender, they maybe make 3,000 guitars, and I want to make sure that they're not just buying one pickup, ship it to China, and and then they get it from there, So that's why I got the patent. Anyway, cut a long story short, didn't happen with Fender, yeah? Because they just, I don't know the details, but I suppose financially it just wasn't worth doing it for Matthias. Plus, they didn't really were able to do everything he wanted with the guitar. He had new ideas and all that. So anyway, we decided, okay, yeah, we do it ourselves. And that's what became the Masterclass. And it was took some time to get it to that stage that it is in now. Because Matthias knew exactly what he wanted. And the first one I remember, basically he wanted to have a Strat, standard Strat body, but 24 frets. That was the first change, 24 frets. 2 humbuckers, because he needed the fat humbucker sound, but also the single coil sounds. Basically, the guitar should be able to produce all the sounds the Scorpions ever used. Right? And there are quite a few. Yeah, there's lots of different distortion sounds and crunchy sounds, and then all the clean sounds, like wind of change, very, very clean. Actually, it was a Tele, originally. So I remember the first Mastercaster. It had 2 pickups and original strut body, and then the 24 frets. First problem occurred, right? He didn't want to change the shape. He wanted to keep it strut. So I had to sort of overlap the fretboard into the body for the 24 frets. Because he didn't want to have longer neck and all that, so it feels like an old strut. And I told him, you won't be able to reach them. Oh, no, I will. Well, of course he didn't, right? So the next one, I made a deeper cutaway, and then the neck was a bit, the neck setting was deeper in the body and all that. Anyway, 3-4 guitars later, we had the final stage. Oh, then also he wanted to have the first one change into, the first one was Marlboro Red, because at the time we developed the first guitar, he was smoking, right? And he was smoking Marlboros. Oh. So that's why the guitar was Marlboro Red. Now wait for it. After a couple of months, he stopped smoking. Yeah. And because of that, he hated the Marlboro Red. So I got the guitar back. I changed that guitar. I had to change it. I made the cutaway weaver and all that. And that one became Zebra. So that was the first Zebra Mastercaster, which actually originally was Marlboro Red, then Zebra. And also I had to fit a pickup in the middle position, the single coil, right? Because he found that there were sounds where he needed the middle pickup. And I also remember I was about, I think 4 times I had big meetings with him in the studio where I brought my test guitar. I've got a test guitar. It's got a big hole in the middle where you can easily fit pickups and you can slide them back and forth and all that. Well, first I had to find the right pickups, the right compositions of the humbuckers and the single coils. The first one, I remember the single coil was too smooth for him and he needed to have a bit more bite and all that. And then we fiddled around with the positions, and you won't believe what difference it makes when you move the pickup a little bit, right? Back and forth, just a few millimeters. It can change the sound quite dramatically, So, for instance, we found a position for the bridge pickup, which was very, very close to the bridge. And the bridge is a Floyd Rose tremolo, And those Floyd Rose tremolos, they're designed to use really heavy. You can bend the thing down that the strings are completely loose. They wobble around like this, which is a great effect. You can do the Harley start and all that. And Matthias, what he does. Sometimes he has a solo where he plays on his own on stage and he's using it a lot, right? And the Floyd Rose is the only one, that when you do the 10 minutes doing all that, afterwards it stays in tune. But it means there's a lot of force on the construction. The thing is held by 2 bolts, and the bolts, there's a lot of force. And because the pickup was so close to the bridge, there was not much wood left, right, to hold that bloody bolt for the Floyd Rose. And I was frightened that when he uses, that all over suddenly the bolt gets loose and the whole tremolo flies around, which can be really dangerous, there's a 70-kilo pull. It's like Robin Hood when you shoot a bow, and if that goes on your head, it can really damage. So I was very worried, and I had to make sure that this special point is very strong. I had to reinforce the body with carbon fiber stuff and all that to make that particular point solid to make sure that it won't fly around. Yeah. You won't see it. It's all under the lacquer and under the pickup, but it's there. And if it wasn't there, it would be a very, very dangerous guitar. Right. Anyway, yeah, guitar works fine. It can produce all the sounds he needs. And yeah, it works great. From very, very heavy, we at the bridge we got the so-called muscle bucker, which is I claim to be the strongest pickup on the market. Yeah. For the experts out there, it's got 21K kilo ohms resistance, which is beyond anything I know is out there. And all the engineers gonna tell you, ooh, that's too much, that won't sound, that will be all muffled and no trebles and all that. Well, listen to it and you're gonna find it's got all the trebles and all the middles and nice punchy bass, and on top of that, it's double as loud as a normal pickup, right? Yeah, very nice pickup. The Scorpions use it in nearly every guitar. Yeah. Also, the Gibsons, most of them have the muscle bucker in it. Very simple reason for that, because if they use a pickup with a normal pickup, a guitar with a normal PAF type pickup, they have to adjust the amp to get the same volume. And that's no good. Yeah. Roadies hate that. They hate to change settings on the amp when the gig's on, right? So that's why it's good to have one sort of pickup for all the guitars. You don't have to change. Yeah. Very simple, because Matthias loves Explorers, first of all. That's why he has his Explorer model, the Explorer 90, which is a sort of slimmed down version with 24 frets. But he also loves the good old Gibson Firebird. Yeah, do you know the Gibson Firebird? Well, you know Johnny Winter, for instance.
Johnny Winter, yes.
Yeah, well, you know those guitars that Johnny Winter played. They're called Firebird. They got a sort of off-shape design. Check it out. Go on Google, check Firebirds. Very unusual guitars. I love them myself. I used to have one when I was young. A real old Firebird from 1963, which I bought for 2,000 Deutschmarks. And stupid me, if I would have kept the thing today, I would easily get $25,000 for it. Anyway.
Probably very.
Yeah, and the Fire Axe basically is a mixture between the Firebird and the Explorer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got the back of the body is the Firebird, and the top of the body is the Explorer, basically. And that's sort of morphed together. Yeah. And that was Matthias' idea.
You always are inventing. You two seem to always be coming up with something that's new and different innovation that other guitar players don't have.
That's right. But you see, you may not forget that the initial idea comes from Matthias. Yeah. I mean, we were at dinner and basically Matthias, he just done a little sketch of a Firebird and Explorer, and you see here you put the Firebird and there you put the Explorer. So I designed the whole thing, of course, right? I make it sort of that the proportion, everything is right, yeah, and I do all that 1-to-1, Yeah, I do it on a big white cardboard. Use my templates, and then I do make variations, and then I make a photo of it, and I send it to Matthias, and he says, oh, okay, here a little bit this, there a little bit that, right? And that's how we get the design. And of course, for instance, I think I did send about 5 variations. Yeah, all a bit different, a little different here, a little different there. And then he picked one out. Yeah. He said, okay, that's the way we do it. Okay. And basically, the Fire X is, I find it it's more comfy. It's more comfy than the Explorer 90. But it's not as bulky as an original Firebird. The original Firebird looks great, but it's a very bulky thing on stage, and it's very heavy on the head, and you always have to hold it up, and with the right arm you have to press it down, and it's a bit of a fight with the guitar. And with the Fire X there is no fight. The thing is perfectly balanced. There's a very simple reason. He just got 2 of them, right? And he's got about 50 other guitars. Yeah, and you see, let me explain the way it works, because people wonder, oh yeah, you made 50 guitars, 100 guitars for the Scorpions. Yeah, how did this happen? Do they all play it and all that? They actually do, because they have 3 backlines. Yeah. 3 complete backlines. That means the whole setup: drums, bass amp, guitar amps, all the guitars. Yeah, and those 3 backlines are touring around the world. Yeah, because you see that sometimes they have schedules, as I said. For instance, with that Alaska, where they play one day Alaska, and the next day they play Manaus or Brazil, whatsoever. It's impossible to get the whole backline in one day from up there down to there. It's impossible. So what they do is they have a second backline that is in Brazil already. Yeah. And maybe the third backline might cruise around somewhere in Russia. Yeah.
Well, they send a lot of their equipment, for instance, to the United States like a month in advance.
Exactly. Yeah, and sometimes they have to do it because of, I don't know, it gets held up by customs or whatsoever. There's always something. Yeah, and when you listen to the stories in Russia, oh my God, the East, very adventurous, right? Anyway, so every backline. Then they have the guitars, yeah. They have different tunings, yeah. They change for every song, nearly every song. They change guitars because the next song is in a different tuning than the song before, yeah. Right. And you see, today it's actually very common that the whole band tunes down, yeah. In the old days, everybody tuned to the good old A, right? A. Today, they drop down, yeah? They drop down half a note, full note, 2 notes. They even drop down 4 notes sometimes. Yeah, it's crazy. That's actually very crazy. If they drop down 4 half notes, yeah, that means the strings are getting very wobbly. Because they're very loose, the strings, yeah, and that's why sometimes then the very low tunings, they use thicker strings, yeah, and for instance, they can't use the short scale guitars like the Gibsons. They can't use them. They need a longer scale, which means longer neck, that there is more tension with the strings. Anyway, they have loads of different tunings. For every tuning, they need a different guitar.
Okay.
And every guitar, in case something happens, needs a spare guitar. For instance, they play the song String Breaks. Yeah. Ingo immediately grabs the spare guitar that has the same tuning and basically is the same guitar, yeah, because it needs to have the same sound. Very quick swap. It just takes, it takes a blink of the eye. Yeah, they're so fast, the boys, yeah. And on they go, right? That's why every guitar they need to have at least twice. So as you can see, there are many, many guitars on stage. Not because they want to show off the guitars. You won't see them because they're all behind the curtain. Yeah, they're there because that's the way they can do a perfect show. There is no other way, you know. I mean, some bands, they get away with just play one guitar non-stop the whole gig through. Yeah, but in case of the Scorpions, it won't work. Because every song is different. They need different sounds, yeah, different guitars. And they're very busy on stage, you know. I mean, you won't imagine how busy it is behind the stage. Yeah, they're all very, very busy, getting ready for the next song and all that, you know. And then there comes Rudolph on stage or something, yeah. And then, for instance, yeah, if Matthias doing his solos, you know, they've got that very long, like a catwalk, you know, going into the audience, into the crowd, yeah. And sometimes they do even acoustic sets, which really amazes me. They do an acoustic set in the middle of the crowd, you know, on a very, very small space, and with James playing the cajon, you know, the acoustic drum box thing. And they do that acoustically, and I'm always amazed that there's no problem with feedback and all that, you know, because I would imagine big feedback. But it works perfect. Yeah, it's all fine. No, not yet. Okay. No. No, actually, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem too much interest in that guitar, you know. Should show it more, you know. There should be more promotion. I mean, there should be more promotion anyway. The thing is, I'll be honest with you. I don't do anything. I just don't do anything. I'm just in the workshop and make guitars and make pickups and because, to be honest, I've got enough to do, and if I would do more promotion, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. You see, I work on my own. Yeah, my wife helps me winding pickups once in a while, if she can. But we got the kids in the house and all that, and I've got no employees. I used to have apprentices, but well, not right now. So I do it all myself.